Okay, so unit 1K, storage and distribution. So this part actually covers, I would say, the end part of a manufacturing product process, in which that you already have finished producing and testing the product that you intend to market or sell. Um, so before it reach the consumers, you have to store it first before being distributed to the respective customers, either hospital, pharmacies, or clinics. So the outline for this part is covered on the incoming material first, and then outcoming, and the third would be the guideline from the PIC or PIC-S, and also guide to the GMP. So this PIC is actually from given by the NPRA, and then also guideline from NPRA on GDP. GDP is what we call as a good distribution practice. Okay, so you have GMP, good manufacturing practice. You also have GLP, good lab practice, and this GDP, which is good distribution practice. So when we talk about incoming, it means incoming material. Basically, this is more to raw material. Okay, so before you want to probably produce or have a batch of let's say a tablet made, you must have all the materials, raw materials ready. So the raw materials are normally stored in the warehouse. Okay, so when all of these materials arrive at your compound, at your premise, you have to compare the purchase order to each container that is arrived. So purchase order, that means what is the things that you order. Maybe you order 4 boxes of maybe solvent, probably, maybe 4 drums of coloring, whatever. So you have to actually compare everything that you order, which is in the purchase order, uh, exactly as what it is arriving at your premise. So it's not just the quantity, the item also must be correct. Okay, so label description, the batch number, type of material or pharmaceutical product, and quantity, these are all have to be checked and also compared with whatever that you order. So this has to be done by a qualified and trained person. Okay, and then you also have to check for uniformity of the containers, because let's say they might say that, oh, all of these 4 boxes contain the same item, but maybe one of the box have different packaging. So you might want to inquire why this packaging is different from the rest. Maybe they will provide you with answer, oh, this is a new packaging or something like that. But you have to inquire on any things that you feel, oh, this is different from what we order. So you have to check on that as well. And then any damage to the materials that is arrived, whether it is on the container itself. Let's say you see this blue plastic drum over here, maybe one of them is dented. So you have the power of saying, no, I will not receive this. I order a perfectly, no damage product. So you can tell the suppliers on how to handle this kind of issue, and then any contamination of the materials that you have ordered. So this is more like if you check on the lid, okay, any leakage on the boxes, probably if there is some opening, or the packaging has been torn, so that could lead to contamination. So that are the things that you want to avoid and also check lah. Then what will you do next? Okay, only the good one, okay, all of the good material that pass all the checking will be put into quarantine. That means into a holding area in the warehouse while the stuff that you order which you feel are not up to your standard will be rejected by the authorized person. So normally the authorized person will be from the quality department as well, because they know what to expect and they know what is the quality level that you want to have. Okay. So what happened to the rejected goods? So let's say you want to reject two drums from 10 that you ordered. So what happened to the two? So there are three routes of possibility for that rejected material, whereby number one, it will be put in stock for sale. That means you want to sell it back, okay, to other people, or you can return it to the manufacturer. So you return back to the supplier, you say, I don't want to receive this, you return back. Number one means you receive, you still receive, but you don't use for your production, you just want to sell it back. And then number three, it is straight away destroyed. That means for the third option, it is more on like the material itself maybe has been contaminated. So it's just a waste of time. If even if you return it to the supplier, they will also discard it. Okay, but all of this depends on the agreement between the distributor and also the customer, which is you lah. So basically, um, the what do you call that? In the agreement, it has to be spelled out what will happen if, let's say, you rejected some of the incoming materials that you have ordered. So maybe the supplier said, you can return it to us, or maybe they will just straight away just destroy it, okay, and they will send a new one. Okay, so but all of this will be in the agreement. And then when we talk about upcoming, so upcoming is when you have your own product going out of your uh, what do you call that, warehouse. Okay, um, so these are also done, I mean, done by the authorized person. Okay, and this authorized person have to check if there's any mixing between batches. So let's say the batch, you can refer to the batch number. Let's say the upcoming product should only be from one batch. So they should check that there is no mixing between batches, and is there any cross contamination, and all of that must be accompanied by documentation which is stated in the purchase order as well. Okay. So these are the good distribution practice, which is um, set up by the NPRA. This is the old version, which is the name also still the old name, which is National Pharmaceutical Control Bureau, NPCB, but now it has been rebranded into NPRA, okay, National Regulatory Pharmaceutical Agency. So now instead of bureau, it is now an agency. And this is the PIC just now, or PICS, Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention and Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, whereby they also have a specific guide to good manufacturing practice for medicinal product, which is for pharmaceutical products. So these are the two um, reference that we use when we talk about GDP. Okay. So under the PIC just now, the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, there are a few criteria that has to be observed, which is the storage areas, the warehousing procedures, and also the distribution procedures. So this is according to the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention and Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme. For storage areas, according to PICS here, it should be of sufficient capacity to store. That means the warehouse, or I mean the storage area, has to be big enough so that you can put all of the starting material to make the actual product, and then the packaging material. Okay, it's not just making the tablet itself, but the what do you call that? The material to pack those tablets. Okay, all the aluminum strips and so on, and then intermediate products, bulk product, the finished products, And then products in quarantine, release products, even rejected product also, you must have an area, a specific area to put. And then return products, and the last one would be recall products. So the recall product is the last thing that you want if you are a manufacturing company. But then again, just in case, there must be a specific area where you can place any recall product if the situation occur. And then for storage areas, it must be designed or adapted to ensure good storage condition, and also it must be clean and also dry and well maintained within the acceptable temperature limit. So the temperature must be controlled, okay? And if special conditions are required, such as certain temperature and also the humidity, the relative humidity, it must be also checked and monitored. So that means there must be a relative humidity meter and also a thermometer, whereby you can always check the temperature and also the relative humidity. And for receiving and dispatch base like this, so receiving and dispatch base is where the lorries can come in, okay, any trucks can come in, and you can just push the product straight into it, okay. uh, and it should be protected uh, using materials and product from uh, certain weather, maybe rain, for places like in those countries that have 4 seasons. That means also extreme heat during summer and also maybe snow during winter as well. And it should be designed whereby the reception area should allow containers to be clean before storage. So um, the trucks that are coming, they should have like a specific area. I mean, the area should be big enough so that you can clean the inside of the containers first. And then the quarantine area should be in separated area and clearly marked. So there should be uh, a symbol like this or a sign whereby there is a specific uh, uh, statement or like quarantine area over here, and also only for authorized personnel only. And it must be restricted to certain staff members only. And then the sampling area for starting material should also be separated. That means here sampling area means before you can use the starting materials or raw materials to start your production, the QC department will normally take a little bit of it to run some tests, okay, and then the result will be compared with the certificate of analysis given by the suppliers to make sure that it is comply or within spec, okay. And that requires some sampling with the raw materials. So it has to be in a separated area. And if sampling is performed in the storage area, then there should be a prevention for contamination. So that means it cannot be like in like an open air kind of condition. Probably the sampling should be done in a more smaller area or smaller room like that. And then for rejected, recall or written material or product should be stored in segregated areas. So that here it means the purpose of doing this is to avoid mixing of good products that you intend to distribute with the rejected or recall or return products, because here are all finished product that have issues or have problems. And the highly active materials or product also should stored in safe and secure areas. So highly active materials depends on the storage conditioner, because some chemicals may be too hydroscopic, meaning they absorb water quite easily. So you need to put it in a very dry area, so very low relative humidity, or maybe some require very low temperature because it has a high a low flash point. So you have to keep the temperature very low. So this can be referred, for chemicals, you can refer to the safety data sheet, the SDS, whereby all of the information will be clearly stated, and especially on how to store these kind of chemicals. And number 10 is on the printed packaging material. So this could be from the boxes that you want, or stickers for the product itself. Okay, maybe the box to put on the strips of the tablets, or maybe stickers to be pasted on the bottles. So it considered critical to conformity of product, and special attention should be paid to the safe and secure storage of this material, because um, let's say sometimes you also purchase any medication that is in a box. They will also put in some what do you call that, a piece of paper whereby they put all the information of the medication. So this has to be put in a secure area, because let's say for some reason, maybe people with bad intention want to sabotage or something like that, they might put um, wrong information on this printed material, so you end up putting it on your product, so that would be causing wrong information lah, reaching to the consumers and also customers. Okay, next, the procedures for warehousing, okay, according to the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention here. The records of temperature and also humidity should be maintained. So here is an example whereby the uh, uh, data, okay, you can extract and put it into a computer, so it can track the temperature and also humidity. Probably it will take the reading every a certain interval of time that you can set. Maybe you want to put it every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, okay? Or some might have like 24 hours records. Okay, so it depends on how you want to uh, record the temperature and also humidity. But then again, you can take the data over here and put it in the computer, and you can see when the temperature accidentally rise or falls below the specification. Like here, you can see that example. uh, Temperature is at 29 degrees Celsius, and then it dropped to 25, and then suddenly on probably at I think almost 2 p.m. over here, it rise up to 30. Okay, and then it drop, and then it rise again. So you must identify what caused the increase in temperature, because the difference is quite large here, from 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. So it's about 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, because if your materials that you want to keep is temperature sensitive, then this can be crucial for you to see what can cause, maybe it can cause deterioration on the material itself. And for distribution procedures, according to PIC over here, the active pharmaceutical ingredient and also any intermediate material should only be released for distribution after they have been released by the quality unit. So that means the maybe QC, after they have run the test and the results are satisfactory, then only the product can be released to be used, okay, in the production or something like that. And then they should be transported in a manner that does not adversely affect their quality, and special transport or storage condition should be stated on the label. So that means if the transportation also requires low temperature, then you have to use uh, a truck, okay, that also have air condition, okay, like you have I think probably have seen those lorries which have containers that include the air condition as well. And the manufacturer also should ensure that the contractor for transportation knows and follows the appropriate transport and storage condition. So here, if let's say your company does not have your own logistic uh, transportation, that means no truck or lorries, and you have to subcontract it to another party, then you have to make sure that those contractors that is responsible for the transportation knows, okay, what they should do and what are the condition that the product has to follow, okay. And a system should be in place by which the distribution of each batch can be readily determined to permit its recall. Okay, now this is done on according to the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, but now this is the guideline from NPRA. Okay, NPRA Good Distribution Practice. So you can actually refer this to the official document from NPRA. You can go to the website. So basically, this is just fact. Okay, I'll just extract the information from the NPRA and put it here. So in a more concise manner. So there are 13 parts over here under NPRA GDP. The first is introduction, and then we're going to go to QM, personnel, premises and facilities, stock handling, stock control, disposal of materials, product and cosmetic, and then documentation, vehicles and equipment, transportation and goods in transit, and then followed by self-inspection. Self-inspection is more like internal audit. And then you have counterfeit materials and products, and the last two would be legal documents, and then management of cold chain products. So according to NPRA, there's the details on GDP is quite more exact, okay, and more detailed. So you're going to go through each of these 13 parts. So before we proceed, we're going to go to the introduction. So GDP is this is more like the definition, okay, or the principle of GDP according to NPRA. The measures that need to be considered, excuse me, in the storage, transportation, and distribution of any registered product or notified cosmetic and its related material, such that the nature and quality intended is preserved when it reaches the consumer. So this is the definition of GDP according to NPRA. Whereas for QM, okay, QM stands for quality management. It should include the organizational structure, the procedure, the process and resource, and systematic action to ensure adequate confidence that the materials and product, which I use this symbol MNP until the rest of this part over here, and the combination will satisfy given requirement for quality. So all the parties that involved in the distribution of the materials and product must share responsibility for the quality and safety of the materials product to ensure that they are fit for their intended use. That means the responsibility does not just fall on maybe the one person only. Okay, so that has to be shared equally by all the people that involved in the distribution of the the materials and product. Okay, let's say maybe the truck driver as well is responsible to make sure that the quality of the product is not jeopardized while sending it from one place to another. And then authorized procurement and also release procedures for all administrative and technical operations performed should be in place to ensure that the materials and product are sourced from approved suppliers and distributed by approved entities. The approval should come from the competent authority of the individual country where the legal entity is registered. So that means if in Malaysia, it will be under NPRA. The approval must be received from NPRA. And then there must be a written procedure to ensure the document traceability of material and product received and distributed based on batch numbers. So you have to know the product that you just produced just now, okay, they must have a batch number, and it should be documented where those batches goes. Okay, let's say maybe you send 10 boxes of that medication to hospital A, and then maybe another 20 boxes of that to hospital B. So you should know the numbers of product that has been distributed. So good procedure plus good record, it can avoid penetration of counterfeit material and product. Okay, this is to avoid any uh, copy copyright from happening lah. And then an ISO inspection is not a substitute for any national, federal, or state regulation unless specifically stated by such regulatory agencies. That means you are, I think, familiar with the ISO, but then again, ISO certification is different from the regulation from the national or federal or state agencies. Like, for example, in Malaysia, the ISO certification is different from the approval obtained from the NPRA lah. Say NPRA will give you the probably license for you to make the product. Okay, ISO is just a certification for your premises. Okay, for your company, a manufacturing company. And then we're going to go to personnel. Okay, so key personnel who perform supervisory or controlling store or warehouse function should possess the necessary competency, knowledge, and experience. So you cannot have just anybody lah. So the person, probably the manager of the warehouse or the storage, must be someone who already has experience. Okay, you cannot have a junior personnel being taken the job. Okay, and then in terms of documentation, there must be an organization chart and job description for all the personnel. So from the manager up to the lowest level employee. So personnel in storage facilities should be adequate. That means there is enough staff, and they must be certified healthy and fit. So normally these companies, manufacturing companies, they will have what we call that health screening or health checkup every year. Okay, medical checkup every year, whereby the staff will be check their blood tests, X-rays, and everything to make sure they are healthy and fit. Okay, and also they must receive medical examination upon recruitment, and also receive medical examination periodically afterwards. So this can be done once a year or maybe once every 2 years, depends on the policy of the company. And this medical examination actually should be borne by the company lah. Okay, if they require, they are the one who ask you to do the medical examination. I think it is fair that they paid for it lah. And then they must wear suitable protective or working garments. Okay, let's say you want them to be, you can ask them to wear the, what do you call that, fluorescence vest. Okay, maybe to increase visibility or something like that. They have to wear what do you call that, safety helmet, for example, because warehouse, they will stack the item, I mean, at a very they have this high shelf. Okay, so maybe just for safety precaution, let's say some of the boxes might drop, so you have your safety helmet ready lah. And then receive training on theory and practice of GDP, receive training appropriate to duties assigned as well. So visitors or untrained personnel should not be taken into storage areas. If this is unavoidable, they should be closely supervised. That means they must be chaperoned. There must be someone who are always with them. Okay, so these are normally the safety or PPE that they must wear. Okay, even the staff also wear this safety boot like this, the fluorescent vest, this orange vest to increase visibility, and then the safety helmet. Then the premises and also facilities. You must have your building, the ground and foundation, the premises itself, storage facilities, and also storage condition. So the building must build for its purpose. That means it cannot be like, oh, you just simply take any building and convert it to a storage area, because the interior might not be suitable enough. Okay, normally a storage area has high ceiling. Okay, not a very like normal building type. Okay, and then they must have sufficient security to prevent unauthorized access and misappropriation of good. Let's say maybe you have to set only one or two entrance only, and that entrance might require the use of access card or fingerprint to enter. Okay, and then the building also must protect the materials and product from deterioration, contamination, and also excessive heat and undue exposure to direct sunlight. Okay, these are example of a storage areas or warehouse. Okay, you see like the first picture, there's even an air conditioned unit attached to it. So probably this is uh, what do you call that? The inside is very the temperature is well managed. Okay, this one also have very high doors or big doors, maybe to allow trucks to enter. Okay, so that they can load and unload materials and products. So ground and foundation should be secure as possible against groundwater. That means you don't want any water from seeping out from the ground. So it is best to have like a cement base, okay, and high enough to remain dry during extreme rainfall and flood conditions. So this is uh, actually good practice, but sometimes it is unavoidable, because some areas that have never flood before, they might having flood like last time in Shah Alam. Okay, but then again, uh, try to increase the level of the warehouse. Okay, the premise. Okay, and then they must have a permanent address and located at a approved site and constructed, serviced, and maintained. So once you have built it, it must always be serviced and maintained. Okay, meaning the lighting, the wiring, everything has to be, I mean, the roof as well has to be checked, okay, periodically. And for the storage facilities, it must be large enough to have separate zones, including for materials and product that require special storage condition due to sensitive and dangerous character. So let's say the materials requires no direct sunlight, so it should be put in a dark room. So you must have an area specified for a dark room. And then clean and free from vermin, so no pests. Okay, no what do you call that, bugs, no mouse. Okay, and have written sanitation program. So this is an example of a cleaning schedule on what to do each days. And then they should have sufficient lighting, okay, like the image uh, here. Okay, they also include windows. Okay, this is for natural light lah, but you also must put a light source as well. And then when controlled environment requires such temperature and also relative humidity, they should be continuously monitored. And an instrument for the temperature and also humidity monitoring must be calibrated as well. And once it is calibrated, all the calibration record and calibration certificate has to be kept. And then the bag and box of material product should also be stored off the floor. That means you cannot just simply put on the floor, directly on the floor. Okay, so it must be put on a shelf, or maybe at least what do you call that, uh, wooden pallet. Okay, at least a wooden pallet, so you cannot put directly on the floor. So this is the example of the relative humidity just now. Okay, so like this, you cannot put the box directly on the floor. It has to be put at least on this. This is plastic pallet lah, so wooden or plastic pallet can be used. And the person that is moving it also must use what they call that, proper handling tools. Okay, like this is a hydraulic jack. Okay, because the materials could be heavy, so you must use proper tools. So storage condition for materials and products should follow the required storage specification. Okay, so here an example of the product. Let's say for this mica disc plus, it must be stored below 25 degrees Celsius and protect from light and also moisture. So you need to have a temperature control. You have to check the humidity and also the light source. Okay, and this one stored in cool and dry place, preserved in tight containers. So this is more uh, less specific than this mica disc plus. Okay, wait. So storage conditions stated on the label means the following. So this is what it means. If let's say freezer, -20 to -10, refrigerator 2 to 8. Okay, so according to this, the list here. And the next criteria is for stock handling and also stock control. So upon receipt, each incoming delivery must be checked against relevant documentation and also physically verified by label description, type and quantity against the relevant purchase order information. So basically, once you receive an item or incoming, it has to be checked lah on whatever that is arrived with your purchase order, and they should include the description of the goods and quality if applicable, quantity, supply details, supply batch number, and the date of receipt, and also assigned batch number. So all containers should also be carefully inspected for tampering, contamination, and damage. So if you see like this, they probably have a special tape, okay, to close the box. So if you see that this tape has been replaced with a different one, so maybe you want to pay an extra attention to that. So all stock should be checked regularly for expired and degraded materials and products. And distribution document should comply to relevant national regulation and at least include the date of distribution, customer names and address, and also the product description. Okay, the next criteria according to MPRA for GDP is the disposal of the materials and product. So it should be carried out according to proper destruction procedures, which is approved by authorities. And once you dispose, you must have a record for that. Okay, like maybe you have expired medication that you have in stock and you want to dispose, so you cannot just simply throw into the rubbish container or something like that. Okay, yeah, there must be a proper disposal procedure. And then in terms of documentation, you should have written instruction whereby it must describe these activities that include receipt and checking deliveries, the storage, cleaning and maintenance of premise, the recording of storage condition, security of stock, withdrawal form for saleable stock, and then records including client's orders, and then if there is any return or recall materials and also product. So all of the procedures must be approved and signed and dated by the authorized person. Okay, normally it will be prepared by one person, checked by another person, and then only approved. So there will be 3 signatures on all of the procedures. And the inventory also must include these details over here. An example of a stock card. So because you have to in a storage area, there is a term we call stock take. So stock take is actually you are trying to not calculate, but just to be sure what kind of materials that you have in stock at hand. Okay, so these are the information you can put in a documentation, probably an example like this. Okay, and then labeling of containers and packaging materials should be clearly labeled. So each hologram label should be recorded according to its usage in logbook. So if the company has gotten approved to use a hologram from the NPRA or KKM, like for example, so they can use it on their product, but then the usage must be recorded in a special logbook. So example of the packaging material that should include all of the information for the product. Okay, it must have the expiry date, the batch numbers, um, the storage condition, dosage direction. Okay, Eh, and this might be different from what the doctors might prescribe, but the dosage that is put here is more like the generic one. Okay, and then the name of the tablet with the strength and the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the company that make it, the address, and the registration number for that product. And the next criteria is the vehicles and also equipment. It must be suitable for their use and appropriately equipped to prevent exposure of materials and product to conditions that could affect their stability, and it must be kept clean, dry, and free from accumulated waste. So if, let's say, special storage condition is required, it should be provided, checked, and monitored, and also recorded. So measures should be in place to prevent unauthorized person from entering, to prevent tampering, theft, or misappropriation of goods. So this is what happened during transportation and goods in transit. The materials and products should be secured during transit. That means if it is placed in a lorry container like that, then it should be sealed. Okay, it should be sealed so that nobody can open it. Okay, and then shipment should be secured and include appropriate documentation. And then damage to containers and any other event of problem occurs during transit must be recorded and reported to relevant department, entity, authority, and investigated. So materials and product in transit also must be accompanied by the certificate of analysis, COA. Okay, next is self inspection, or more like internal audit. So the quality assurance system should include self-inspection. Okay, if you remember, in QA there is a part for self-inspection, and it should be conducted to monitor implementation and compliance with GDP principles, and this must be recorded. And then for counterfeit materials and product, if any of these are found in the distribution network, it should be physically segregated, okay, from the original one, or from the real materials and product, okay, to avoid any confusion, and they must be clearly labeled. And the legal documents, so all relevant legal records and documentation should comply to the current legislation, referring to, let's say, you have this Poison Act, which is 1952, Sales of Drugs Act, Control of Drugs and Cosmetic Regulation, Dangerous Drug Act, and Dangerous Drug Regulation 1952. But all of these, you see, the year are quite goes way back. Okay, but sometimes they might have a newer version. But then again, these are the an example of the law that we are referring to. And I think the last one, which is the management of cold chain materials and products. So this is where by the product or materials require a cold condition, cold storage. Okay, for example, like this ampule over here, like the vaccines. Okay, all vaccines they require very low temperature. So how to manage this? So list of products should be provided with cold chain storage temperature specification for reference by personnel who handle the receipt of goods and related store personnel. And the cold chain product should be identified immediately and stored under the storage condition that comply with the direction on the product label. Temperature and humidity for cold room or refrigerator must be monitored and recorded continuously using sensors. Okay, there is a specific sensors that you can place in the refrigerator to monitor the temperature. And then the sensor also must be calibrated as well, and you can have an alarm attached to it. So let's say it drops below a certain temperature, then the alarm will sound and let you know. So this is an example: increasing number of products requiring temperature control or what we call as cold chain. Okay, biological drugs, small molecule drugs, all vaccines, okay, and biological sample and also diagnostic tools. So outer packing containing cold chain materials and products should be labeled cold but not freezing. So this means the temperature is between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Refrigerate the contents of the package. So packaging need to be removed before the medicine be placed in the refrigerator. Or if you see like this, keep frozen, then it must be put below 0 degrees Celsius. And procedure also must be implemented to handle the return product for cold chain materials and product. So if storage temperature deviate from storage spec, the manufacturer of the material should be contacted to confirm the suitability of the use of the materials product, and the decision will be recorded. So this is the summary for GDP. Okay, the warehouse should be built for its purpose. Okay, you cannot have one building designed for other usage, but you convert it to become a warehouse. Okay, and then the storage condition of materials and products should be monitored. You must assure the segregation, and then assure the safety warehouse personnel, ensure the security of the product during storage and transit, and then you have to make sure the storage condition complies with the specification, and this will result in the quality of the product being assured. Okay, so that is the end of the lecture for this topic, which is on the good distribution and uh, storage. So any questions